Welcome to another episode of the InfoTech Growth Partner Podcast, a podcast where the future of IT unfolds, and we dive deep into the pertinent developments in regards to IT and data with leaders and experts in the IT consulting field. My name is Jasper, and today I have the distinct pleasure to have Izak Oosthuizen, founder and CEO of Zhero, with me. Izak, it's an honor to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jasper. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity that I can actually share with you today and be on the podcast. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm very excited. Can you give the listeners a bit of an introduction to your background, what you guys do at Zhero, and of course what your role within the company is as well?
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity. So we are basically, I'm the founder and also the CEO for Zhero. Our head office is in London, in Farringdon area, and majority of our customers are in London. So we provide end-to-end, so basically end-to-end cybersecurity and IT support. So you can't really provide support without really making sure that customer estate is secure. So we provide the whole 360 degrees, and we provide this to quite a large vertical, anything from medical to basically in professional services environment. So it will be recruitment, legal, and insurance, and architecture. So professional services where there's really appetite to look after the infrastructure, making sure that the estate and the users that works for your organization can work, they can print, they can access their emails in a secure manner, and make sure ultimately the end product is compliant. So we provide the whole compliant, fully managed spectrum with security for our customers. And the majority of our customers, I would say over 90% of our customers, are based in the UK. I started the company in 2006 in the UK myself. I was an engineer myself. And I just saw in the market there's this major disconnect in the world of what we as an engineer has to provide, what we have to provide, or what we have, and the golden eggs we are basically sitting on, and what the audience in the world outside wants. And I just felt I want to close that gap between the world of I was a bit of an engineer, the world of nerds, so to say, and what the audience, the public really wants on the outside. And I was determined, I want to close that gap. I want to make it easy, not only for our customers, but also for my staff to understand, look, this is what we provide to our customers. This is how we provide it to our customers. So I was really always customer focused. We've grown organically over the years. To my shock, it's 18 years later, and I guess I can say today we have a better understanding of how to deliver service. And scaling a company takes a bit of time. As soon as you scale the organization, you sit with other problems like staff problems, culture problems, retention of customer problems, retention of staff problems, cash flow problems. And so here we are 18 years later, and it's definitely been a very good journey, but that's what we provide. We provide the end-to-end support and security for small, medium enterprise companies. Small, medium enterprise companies would be anything from 10 to 1,000 staff, but the majority of the customers are in the region of 70, 80 to 100, 150 staff.
Thanks for sharing. And what we see in the market is really that a lot of companies, and especially maybe the SMEs, are looking for a partner, an outside partner, an end-to-end partner that can help them with all sorts of things related to IT and therefore also cybersecurity. At the same time, you're the founder and CEO of Zhero, but also a best-selling author at the same time.
That's right.
You've written books. Maybe I think your recent book is about you don't need a £1 million cybersecurity budget.
Yes.
I think that is very relevant. There it is. I think that is very, very relevant for the SMEs out there who typically don't have that much money, or at least don't have that much budget aside for those types of things, but do want to make sure that they are compliant and making sure that most of their assets are secure as well. Mm. What motivated you to dedicate your career into IT and cybersecurity and protecting SMEs specifically? And what gap did you see there on what made you focus on that part of of businesses, let's say like that.
Yes, I mean, just a little bit about me historically. So I was born in South Africa, and when in my early 20s, I went to the UK after I finished my degree, and I always had a passion for. I had two passions. Always had a passion for technology, and I had a passion for business. And I left to the UK. I finished my degree, and virtually didn't really have any. I had some work experience in South Africa, but I left to the UK. It was in the early 2000s, and it was very difficult to get into the IT market, but I was determined I want to get into IT. So it's, I guess, the passion for technology. And then I got some exposure. It was a bit of a difficult journey to get into London experience, never mind UK experience. The London experience was one step up. So to get into the UK market was extremely difficult, but to get into London experience, that is almost like the cherry on top. And I got a break, and I'm forever grateful about that. And so I got a break, got experience in London, went through a lot of testing and trialing periods. But so miraculously, I had an opportunity to start a company, and I had an organization that wanted me to look after their sort of estate, and they offered me a small retainer to look after their sort of environment. And at the very same time that I looked after the environment, the company I used to work for had a management buyout, and I managed to inherit those customers also. So I guess the combination, the passion for technology, the passion for trying to have my own business, and I had the opportunity in 2006 after I had enough experience to actually, because the problem is if you do start a company, you really need a lot of experience to start it, because you need to be able to set up a firewall, you need to be able to set up a VLAN. These are strong technical terms or jargon. You need to be able to install RAM, you need to be able to upgrade RAM, you need to be able to set up a virtual server. So you need to have quite a strong skill set. So gratefully I had the skills to go in and be able to provide these services for organizations, and that organically grew over the years. And what I saw in the market there was, as a part of the company, and I mentioned it earlier, is also that there's such a big disconnect between the world of nerds, us as an IT engineer, I'm allowed to say it. If I wasn't a nerd, I'm not allowed to say it. The world of technology and the world of what a business wants. And I was determined to close that gap. And in the same sentence, you need to also bring security to the forefront. So there are so many misconceptions in the market. So coming back to the book, what was the drive behind the book? Is that there are so many versions and misconceptions in the market about what is cybersecurity. Nobody really knows. And what we see in the market is we see this overemphasis on a subject. We see an overemphasis on dark web scanning. Everybody is running in the direction of dark web scanning. We see an overemphasis on cybersecurity training. Everybody is running to cybersecurity training, but they neglect the basics. They forget about the basics, or they run to biometrics, or they run to whatever it may be. It's consistent confusion. Everybody is running in the direction, spending a lot of money, or everybody is focused on insurance, or everybody is focused on this type of certification. Meanwhile, they are breaking the basic rules, and that is causing a lot of frustration. And I just felt I want to make it very clear out there that you do not need a £1 million cybersecurity budget. You just need to follow the basics. Do not compromise on the basic rules, and you would be okay. Before you start going into the more sophisticated dark web monitoring and all kinds of extra bells and whistles that I do not say is wrong, but I do say just going back to the question, what is cybersecurity? Cybersecurity is like building a wall, and if you take any of those bricks out of this wall, the wall will not be stable. And it gives the audience a false impression of safety. That's the problem, a false impression of safety. And we see it more and more with the cloud because, we've moved to the cloud so we can break the rules. There are still basics that we need to follow. So the false impression of safety is a big problem. Because we feel there's a demand for it. People are scared, people are confused. And one of the other big problems we have is that the media, journalists, and the newspapers don't cover small, medium enterprise problems. They only cover the big problems. And the problem that we face as a supplier and a organization that looks after SMEs is that the SME owner has got a false impression of safety again because he's on the cloud, and there's not a lot in the news about our problems. And that's a challenge that we have. And we just rising up to the time where it's a matter of time. It will happen. If you will not cover the bases, if you take any of the bricks out of the cybersecurity wall out, you will eventually be exposed. So it's a matter of just time.
Exactly. And you talked about, well, there's a lot of bells and whistles, a lot of complicated things that businesses try to get into. You said dark web scanning. What are some of the challenges that these SMEs are facing when they don't have the basics in order? And can you tell us a bit more about what the basics should be?
Without getting too complicated, so let's just touch on one subject. We just touch on one subject. How do you store your password or passwords? Do you use Post-it notes? Do you use WhatsApp? Do you use SMS text messages? How do you store your passwords? How do you share your passwords? How is the password set up and configured? So this is just one subject. We're just talking about passwords. Set up and configured. How often do we change it? Do we have multi-factor authentication set up? Do we have complexity? So this is just touching on one small brick on the cybersecurity wall. So passwords, sharing, storage, and how has it been set up. Then another very basic one is backups. Okay, we've moved to the cloud. Great, we've moved to the cloud. Do we have a backup? How often do we back up? What is the retention on the backup? What's the location of the backup? Do we have more than one location? So I've just touched on two very, very, very basic, boring subjects that should be part of the norm. And often these are missed. Or another one would be, are we doing our critical security updates? If we don't do critical security updates, we expose ourselves completely, because there is consistently critical security updates being sort of provided by the vendors to make sure that your system is protected. So if you don't do it, none of these are costing really real money to make sure that you have backups, to make sure the passwords are correct, or just do security updates. Never mind talking about inventory, or never mind talking about Joe Smith is moving from the HR department to the accounts department. But Joe Smith that moved from the HR department to the accounts department still got access to all the HR files. So it doesn't cost extra money to make sure that you have the right process. Or Joe Smith has now left the company, but we forgot to switch off his remote access. That happens often. Another example would be Joe Smith permissions to the file. So there's a mixed match of who's got access to what files. Or we copy Joe Smith's profile when we start up a new user, but we never realize Joe Smith has got access to HR and accounts and whoever we copy from. So there's not often internal checks, or just on a yearly basis go internally and check this. And I do understand organizations with ISO 27001, this is unheard of, or bigger organizations that has got these processes, but this is what we see on ground zero, that people are not following the very, very common basics of just looking at the 3-4 things I just mentioned to you. It doesn't cost a lot of money.
Wow. And yeah, indeed. And most of, especially the password storing one is actually something that is very critical, and that most companies can probably set up pretty easily. But they are, and I can imagine SMEs not having the time for it, not being their main thing that they're thinking about every day, because they're running a business, they're trying to grow the business, they're trying to help clients. But it can become very
So for us, if we take example, what we've built over the years, and it took part of my 18 years, is to build like a framework for my customers. This is the minimum required security framework before we can even negotiate or do any business. Otherwise, we're willing to walk away from any deal just because the risk is too high. There are other things that obviously it's a little bit more technical, like single sign-on and making sure your public DNS is correct and making sure that administrative access is regulated within the estate. So there are more higher level sort of requirements, the checklist that we normally go through. But just touching on the very, very basics, these are the things that we see often. And I'll give you an example, just a visual example. We had a company that was, their job was they had these big hangars and they would have a Boeing-like plane inside a hangar, and they would literally take, it's an old Boeing, it's probably not a real Boeing, I don't know, but it's a big plane, and they would literally have staff with ladders standing against the plane and dismantling it screw by screw, part by part, packaging it up, putting it in an envelope, mark it, give it a code, type it into a database. So you're talking about hundreds of thousands of little parts being packed into shelves, typed into a database with probably with a reference number. And when we took this company over, part of the journey was to obviously look at the backups. And then we realized they had the old traditional backup tapes. So somebody is religiously changing the backup tape every day. So without fail, taking the backup tapes home. And obviously we discovered that the backups has not been running successfully for something like a few years. So you can imagine the impact that would have on an organization. They literally taking this massive plane apart, and they lost all the structure. They have no idea what is in the envelopes. 3-4 years worth of work, and they have multiple people unscrewing little parts of this plane, dismantling the plane over a period of 6 months. And I think it was something like a few years where the backups was completely missed. So just to give you a visual idea of what impact it can have. And we've obviously witnessed some real horror stories and real life incidents. I mean, where people take all of your emails and transferring money in the wrong bank accounts and all kinds of bad behavior. But we've seen a lot, but it normally circles back. Most of these incidents normally circles back to something very basic. So
yeah, that always helps giving those examples and showing.
Well, I think the MGM Casino was also had quite a massive incident, and there's a lot of controversy about what happened. But the reality is, you can circle back to the whole story, and you can have many arguments, and you can blame a lot of parties. But the short version of the story remains that multi-factor authentication went through a change. It was switched off at a time. That's the short version of it. There's a lot of stories, but the guy wasn't trained enough, whatever that might be. Multi-factor authentication was switched off, and then the number was changed. That should have never happened. But the fact is, it was switched off. So, and that costed them millions of US dollars. Something very basic. Most of these problems, over 90% of these problems or hacks or incidents or breaches does not require a rocket scientist. It's literally the pray and spray technique. It's literally like we're just testing the ground and we just pray and spray and hope somebody is vulnerable. And I do believe if somebody really wants to target you, you're in for a difficult time. So, no.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. And I always, indeed, those examples really help in getting that sense of urgency for companies to invest in such things, because then they only realize the value of making sure that their cybersecurity is on point. Maybe to go a bit further into that is, of course, with all of the new advancements in technologies like AI, like maybe Internet of Things as well, what new
Well,
cybersecurity
I
challenges
guess
do you
AI is definitely
anticipate for these
evolving, and I
businesses?
mean, we do see AI. Obviously, you spoke to Andre quite a lot about the marketing. There's a lot of stuff I can do on AI and marketing, and I can very easily do a quick video on ransomware, and it helps you with a script. And I can ask the video to set the tone of the video or I can ask the AI to set the tone of the video to funny, to relaxed, to formal, to so this is very helpful in the marketing department. I think security tools wise, we do see a rise on the terminology used, but I do believe it's been something that we've indirectly been used for many years, like anti-spam solutions. Your antivirus does have an element of AI. So it's a form of just arguments that is arguing almost like the human would have argued. So those arguments are just getting developed more and more and better. And I think I have another personal, and I haven't verified my opinion, but it's almost like the nice part about AI is that you are searching for something, but you're not bombarded by ads. It's not like you're doing a Google search. So at least you're getting accurate. Yes. So at least you're getting accurate, healthy, clean, unfiltered information.
Not yet.
That's the thing about AI, and that's definitely something that makes lives easier. It makes life easier more and more for a lot of people. And I think if you are not, I think automation and AI are running hand in hand. And if you are not automating within your company, at Zhero, we are spending a big percentage of our sort of turnover on automation. It's not profitable at the moment, but it definitely eventually starts paying off. So AI automation goes hand in hand. And you need to start automating processes. You need to start having that intelligence at hand. So instead of having 4 members of staff, potentially you could do the same job with 1 member of staff and potentially upskill the staff members in other areas. But if you want to stay competitive in a company, you are going to have to embrace AI and automation. And then the other thing is in regards to IoT. IoT is a big problem. And it's actually, we have a chapter on that in our book about IoT. So basically it's your smart devices, all this, and we have millions of smart devices, hundreds of thousands of pieces of smart devices everywhere in our homes. And because the competitive in the market, the devices are by nature not designed to be very strong or very powerful. So by design, not by nature, apology, by design, they can't deal with any security. They can't really provide any sort of form of defense. And by design, some of them can't even have password protection. And the actual power of these devices can't provide any protection for themselves. So, and some of these devices are really sitting with a lot of valuable and very personal identified PII and healthcare information. Like a lot of these devices are sitting with it. So we are in for something very interesting moving forward, because we are very quick to install these devices, set them up, have them hanging on our walls, and have them hanging absolutely everywhere like a trophy in our homes. But the problem is they are insecure. So, or not insecure, unsecure. So the problem is that what we are facing is we're definitely facing a challenging time as we are distributing all pieces of our lives on these devices, our healthcare information, our weight, our body fat percentage, whatever other information that these devices, yes, whatever is on there might be available very soon to somebody else. So the thing is, and that specific device you have there, it's probably got an IP address and it's probably exposed on the internet, and it is as strong as the strongest sort of point in the system, and that will be that system that you have on your watch or the watch on your arm. So it is definitely a big challenge that we have, and I can't see it going away. The only way you could safeguard your IoT device would be by setting up a VLAN at your house, but nobody's going to do that. You just want to get on with life, and I'm not sure what is going to happen. There's not really a lot of regularity sort of requirements around that at the moment, and Well, I don't want to say I'm excited to see what the future is for IoT devices, because we are seeing more and more IoT devices daily being developed, and they are being developed at a very low rate, and they need to stay competitive. Otherwise, they won't be able to actually be profitable and being available on the market. So I'm not exactly sure what direction things are going to take, but I think we are in for quite a challenging time ahead of us with IoT devices.
Wow. Yeah, I think I see those risks as well. Like, I'm using some IoT devices myself, and of course it's personal information. I can see also a lot of businesses that are using IoT in their manufacturing, in their machineries, those types of things. We can really pose big risk, big financial risks for a lot of businesses.
I mean, if you are using an IoT device for business processes in a business environment, you just need to make sure that you have the right sort of parameter security to protect them, because the devices itself can't protect itself. And sadly, we have seen solar farms that has got many of these IoT devices that they don't have any protection from the outside world, and they do get hacked. And we've seen solar farms being sort of held ransom to obtain some of the information about the meter readings and some of the power consumption, etc., because the perimeter security was not in place, or they are still using default usernames and default passwords. This is just circling back to some of the very basic security challenges, is that people are using default usernames, default passwords on some of the devices. And for user, as a end user or a consumer, I would just recommend that what we see often is that you would use the same username and password for Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and possibly for that IoT device. And if one of those platforms are compromised, the testing on these other platforms will happen. So you want to make sure that if you don't have all your systems connected with complex passwords, change every, say, 180 days or 90 days or whatever you choose on, that you have a complex password in place for complex and different for each of these platforms. So that if one password does get compromised, you're not exposed on the other platform.
And I actually read an article. You have all of it.
Yes.
I actually read an article this morning of a big festival software here in the Netherlands, which was running on a password which was called Welcome01. And yeah, there were a lot of issues there, and they were being hacked and held ransom as well. So it is, even with the bigger guys, it is still so relevant to have your foundation in order. If you can just give one piece of advice, cybersecurity advice, because I know this can be sometimes a bit overwhelming to some people, especially maybe SME owners.
You can survive anything. You can survive the worst storm, but if you have backups, you can survive it. So never mind all the exposure and reputational loss. But I think if you can survive, if you have data loss, if you don't have backups, it's gone. Data is gone and it's gone. So I think backups is absolutely, make sure you have backups, make sure backups are in place, make sure that you have retention. What does retention actually mean? Understand what retention is. How far back can I go on that specific file that I've lost? Because a lot of people have got the false idea of they have archiving, and I can get a file back from last year, October, when it was deleted. And that is what retention means, how far back you can go. Make sure the retention, make sure that it's encrypted, make sure it's password protected. The other thing about backups is make sure that somebody is actually checking that it's working. You don't want to walk into the scenario that I gave you earlier where the organization is fixing planes and they're religiously changing the backup tapes, but nobody's actually looking if there was a backup made onto this media. Backup is king, and then we could talk about the rest. passwords, security. I shouldn't say it in any order, but that is definitely the backups is absolutely super important. And don't assume because you're on the cloud, you have backups. And do not back up with this. This is something else. If you coming to backups, if you do backup and you do use a cloud provider, let's say, for example, you're using your emails on the Microsoft platform. Microsoft is suddenly providing a backup service. I would not recommend that using Microsoft backup service. I would use a third-party piece of backup just to make sure that you don't lock your own keys in your own car. Have your keys safeguarded somewhere else at a key holding company. So if there is really a problem with, example, a supplier like Microsoft or whomsoever, that you have our own independent backup from a different supplier. And that's what we normally recommend to our customers also when it comes to Microsoft 365, is that you have backups in place.
Wow. So everyone listening, if you don't have your backups in place, make sure that that is the first thing that you start with this week. Because as you said, everything
That's right.
is
And then
it can save you from everything.
The last thing is make sure somebody's checking the backups, please, because we see it so often
Isaac,
that
based on your...
we have backups, we are paying for the backups, we're changing the backups, we do everything around the backups, but nobody is actually managing. Who's managing these backups for you? Sorry, apology for interrupting, Jasper. Yeah. Apology for interrupting you there.
No worries. That's a very important ad that you made, making sure that that is in place as well. Is there anything else, Isaac? No worries. No worries. Is there anything else that you want to discuss? Any things that we haven't discussed?
No, actually, we got some exciting times. We're helping with Cyber London. So Cyber London is like a I don't want to say an office that's been set up to help organizations in London and small, medium enterprise companies with cybersecurity. So we help training, providing help to organizations, bringing awareness. And the launch is the 21st of June. So very excited about that. And if anybody is interested in that, they are more than welcome to sort of come and follow us. And we're also on LinkedIn, Cyber London, and I'm very much part of it. And we really enjoying giving back to the community also. So that's all.
Wow, that's an awesome opportunity as well. And yeah, so people, feel free to reach out to Isaac on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out with Cyber London as well. He's happily open to talk to people and give back to the community. So Isaac, thanks for hopping on. I think we've shared some very important and interesting stuff specifically for SMEs.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for the opportunity
to
speaking to you.
And good luck with everything that you're doing.
Speak to you.
Awesome. Thank you.